Good morning. So this is morning time gentle yoga. There's a few things that you might want to have for today's class. This is a yoga strap, specifically made for this purpose. However, you can also use a really long scarf or a dog leash or a belt or anything that you can get a hold of your foot with. Just as a little kind of aside, what I will suggest is these are not terribly expensive yoga props, and it's definitely one I would invest in getting because it's useful in so many ways, and there's lots of little things you can do for your own practice. So this is a regular yoga strap, and most yoga outlets, Yoga Direct, Amazon, Target, all kinds of places sell straps like this. This one is run through its little buckle, and I like, whenever possible, get one that has a metal buckle. Although I have actually smacked myself in the face with the metal buckle once. Once you've done that once, you won't do that again. But this is another kind of strap that you might be into. And this is, the manufacturer is called a stretch out strap. And this one is kind of cool because it's got loops sewn all the way down the edges. And I've seen similar things in different contexts, like mountain climbing or rigging for like hanging gear off yourself. So you might have something like this somewhere in your camping equipment, or you might just buy one of these if you like the idea better. And you can put your foot through a loop, you can put your hand through a loop. So this one is another option. So just a little advertisement that is not sponsored in any way on yoga strap options. But look into what you think would work best for you, and then get yourself a yoga strap, because you're gonna, not today, like clearly whatever you've got today is gonna work, but for future reference, probably, we're not gonna be borrowing yoga straps anytime soon, so get yourself one because it's a very useful tool. Okay, so that little advertisement aside, we're gonna start laying down. Now, you can do any number of things to make yourself comfortable lying down. I am gonna put a bolster underneath my upper back, and then I'm just gonna let my legs hang out straight. Oh, hello. Hello, tiny weasel. All right, so I'm gonna lay this down on my mat. I'm gonna lie down over it so that the bolster winds up about like where the bottom of my rib cage is, or a little bit lower than that. This curve, it does not match the curve of my low back very well, so I don't like it to go right slam up against my pelvis, but your pelvis and whatever you're using under your back might match, and so if it does, you can put it down closer to the end. Okay, so once you've got, and then you can also just lie down, right? Get your strap or whatever you're using as a strap and just put it within easy reach so it won't be too far away. Okay, so here's the top rim of my pelvis. That's where my sacrum lives. Way up here, this is my lowest rib, okay? So I put the end of this bolster in between those 2 points. It's not a big territory for me. Now, some people have a longer positioning in their low back and they have more room. So again, you find it for you. And this bolster is about the width of my shoulders, right? So when I let my arms drop off the end, I feel the support under my shoulder blade almost to the arm bone, but not quite. So my arm bone is going to be allowed to drop back into the shoulder socket, and the shoulder is going to be supported. And so this is one way to do this particular kind of heart opener, chest opener. There's lots of ways to approach it. So I'm trying to do a variety for you guys so that you have some options that you can work with on your own. And just so we have a different experience from time to time. And then if your legs don't feel comfortable all the way stretched out, you could put them into supported rest position, which is where you leave the feet resting on the floor. You just have to find where they'll stay up. It might be closer together, it might be farther apart, without a lot of muscle action to hold them. And you may even knock them together with a block in between them to kind of give you some extra support. Right on? So you can try that if the legs outstretched is a little too much. Now that we're here, we're going to stay for a few more minutes. we're gonna stay for a little bit longer, about 2 more minutes, but I'm gonna spend 1 minute with my head turned to one direction. Whichever direction, left or right. I'm looking to my left. So once I'm here, I have a little bit more stretch on the side, on the right side of my neck. And so I'm just letting that right arm go slightly further out so that I feel that little bit of extra. Not too spicy here on the stretch, on the sensation meter of this stretch, just a, gentle, sweet little stretch through the side of the neck. I'm gonna come back to the center for a moment. And then I'm going to do the same thing but on the opposite side, just to give myself a chance to sort of explore where my neck is this morning. Back. Now, we're going to take a couple big breaths. Now, if you're laying just on your back, you can just bring your feet in. You can windshield wiper your legs. If you've got something underneath your back, go ahead and slip that guy out first. And then you can do these little windshield wiper moves. And I like to sort of feel where it left me on my back. Like, do I feel a difference? Usually for me, there's a difference. Now, depending on what I've had underneath me, it might be an extreme difference. Like the more firm, like the blocks, make a huge change. Something soft like this, not as big, but I do still feel like my arm bones are a little bit closer to the ground or a little closer to the floor than they were when I started here. Oh, and it feels kind of nice to have had my back supported like that. So I'm done with this little windshield wipery thing, and I'm gonna take my right leg and just basically throw it up and over my left leg. And here, I'm gonna give the right foot a little spin while I hang out with this, in this position. Now you could also bring your right leg in towards your chest and hold on to it. So if that's something that feels better to you, go ahead and do it that way. This is just a way you can get around it if it doesn't feel good to draw your legs in towards yourself. Go the other direction with your circles if you haven't already. And then we're going to point and flex through that foot. Alright, so with the foot flexed, we're going to bring it up towards us. And you can hold on to this leg with holding the ankle, holding the thigh, holding the foot, or you can take your strap, wrap it around your foot. We're going to come back to this, but leave your knee bent, okay, so you can hold it like that. Now, I'm a fan of holding onto the inside edge of the foot, so that's the way I'm going to roll. And then we're going to take this left leg and we're going to just extend it out. Now, I feel sensation in this pose. There's a sensation of stretch right here on the front of my left hip, and I've got sensation going on over here in my inner thigh, in my hip, general kind of hip area, all kinds of sensation happening. So for me, I don't need any more than this. This is enough. So I'm just gonna stretch out nice and big. Oh. And then I'm gonna let this get a little softer, put my foot on the ground, and I'm gonna rock all the way to the floor so that my right knee is all the way down, and then I'm gonna stretch this out again. So I've got a little bit of lift here now, so I can stretch a little deeper into that hip if I want to. Okay, take 2 more breaths. Now if this is too much, you go back to the first position. And then we're gonna release, right? And let everything kind of come to neutral. Then I'm gonna take the strap and put it around the ball of my foot. Now I have a loop, because I think loops are easier to work with, because you can put your hand through the loop and hold on like that, all right? So you might need to make the loop a little bigger, but this will work. So left leg is relaxed. If you like, you could put a little pillow underneath that leg like that, so that you have a little support for your knee. And we're getting this sensation somewhere in this right leg. For me, it's around the back of the leg and the calf muscles. All right, so let's look at a couple of different things we can do. If I rotate my leg, the whole thing, so the toes point a little bit more over towards my left shoulder, there's a different stretch than if I rotate the leg so the toes point out to the right. Right on? So the little different placement in where the hamstrings are stretching. If I do a little more internally, I feel it more in my outer thigh. If I rotate out, it's a little more evenly distributed, okay? If I pull my toes down and push my heel up, then a lot of the sensation is in my calf muscles. If I bend my knee, I take away some of the pressure, straighten the leg, a little bit more pressure, right on? So we're gonna stay for about another minute. So you can make those little modifications, rotating, bending the knee, releasing the toes or pulling them down to make it the right stretch for you. And it's the first thing we're doing this morning besides that little lungey thing. So be kind. Good morning. Nice deep breaths, yogis. So we're going to take one more big inhale. I'm going to rotate a little bit so I'll have room. And then as you exhale, we're going to lower this leg out to the side. Now I've taken this pillow and put it right up against my hip so that I have a little bit of structure. I can both rest my elbow on that pillow, or I could just rest my thigh on that pillow. So that gives me a little bit of support here. And I'm a fan of having a little bit of support. This inner thigh area is very sensitive. I don't need all the stretch. But if you do, then you don't use the pillow. If you want more support, put an extra pillow under there or a block. So you'll have more, or even you could rest on the edge of the couch, right? So you have a little bit more support for your thigh. Right, yogis. So we're going to stay for about another 15 seconds. That's a couple deep breaths. So nice big inhale. And then we're going to exhale, and then we're coming all the way across into a twist. So we're going to let this whole thing roll. Now you can keep the strap, or you can lose the strap and just let your legs rest in the twist. There's different, different methodology and different reasons to do different ways. I'm going to keep the strap today, And then I'm just going to kind of work with the strap. So if I push my foot into the strap and kind of draw this hip down, I get a little bit of sensation on that outer hip that I don't get otherwise. So I'm going to go with that. Stay for about another minute here. Alrighty, yogis. We're gonna take a nice big breath. We're gonna come on back to the center and release your leg. And then we're gonna take just a moment here to do a little bit of movement. You could hug your knees into your chest, give yourself a little back massage as well as the little windshield wipery things. But once you have a chance, let both your legs stretch out. And then this is my favorite part because the side that I had just did all those stretches on feels so much different than the other side. And what I mean by that is, like, if I pay attention, I would swear to you that this leg is a little longer than this one. And without touching my hips, it feels like this hip is closer to the ground than this hip. It's not true, but it feels that way. And it feels like this side of my waist is a little bit longer and this arm is a little bit longer. So it just is kind of interesting to check sort of the sensation, even though those don't measure up exactly. It's kind of cool to feel how the body really reacts or responds to these poses. And it's, you know, it's really what I'm experiencing, I think. It's just a feeling of there's a little increased blood flow, there's a little release in the connective tissue, there's been a little release in any stickiness that developed between the muscles. So everything just feels a little bit nicer to be in, a little nicer to live with. So we're gonna bring the other leg in, and again, this one you can hold on to, or you can do that thing we did at the beginning and just throw that left leg over the top of the right leg. And this is, if it's hard or tedious to hold on to your leg, this is a great alternative. So then we're gonna spin the foot in some circles here. There's a sunbeam right in my eyeball. And I'm trying to get like a good range of motion on that ankle joint as best I can. And then we're gonna go the other direction with the circle. And then I'm gonna point and flex my foot like that, point and flex. Right, so now I'm going to bring this leg in, and again, this is where I can hold on to it with the strap if reaching it with the hand is not possible. And then this is the active leg, so I'm reaching my right leg out. And again, if I want to hold it a little softer, I can just let it hang out like that, right on. So for me, the right side is a little bit spicier. It's a little bit more intense. There's a little more muscle, a little more muscle built up on this side. It takes a little bit more for me to feel this. It doesn't take as long for me to feel the sensation, but a little bit more for me to really let go and release here. So again, we're gonna do this idea. So I'm gonna bring this thigh all the way to the floor here. I put my foot here to help. And then I'm gonna re-extend out through that leg. So I've got a little bit more hangover space. Like I'm, hanging over the edge of a cliff here. Might not be a good analogy. but it gives this hip flexor a chance to stretch a little bit bigger. If I'm running into the floor, that's creating, not giving me enough space. Last big breath. And we're gonna come on back, release that leg. Oh, give yourself a little bit of movement while you get your strap handy, and then put that guy around the ball of your foot. And again, we're gonna extend the leg out, and then this right leg is gonna rest, and again, you can put something under that right leg if you like. And so you're just finding the stretch in the hamstrings. Again, you can make those little adjustments, like little toes that way, little toes this way. I like to work into my calf muscles, so I work on that heel up, toes down position for at least part of it. Stay for about 30 more seconds with this one. While I'm here, I can position my pillow into place for step 2. I'm gonna go back to shielding my eyes from the giant death ball in the sky. Actually, I'm grateful for a little sunshine. My garden's gonna grow. Take a nice big breath. And then we're going out to the side. Just in my eyeballs, not as nice. Oh. Again, so there's these little movements, right? You can bend your knee a little bit. You can push the leg out a little straighter. Right now we got 30 seconds left here. So I'm going to take a nice deep breath. Let go with a big ah. We're coming back and we're taking this into our twist. Oh, I might run into the furniture. Hold on. So we're coming across. And again, you're deciding how much, whether you want a bent knee, whether you want to throw in some extra pillows, stack your leg up on, you decide. And again, for me, I'm using this, like the strap as resistance so that I can use my core, these muscles, to gently kind of extend out the side or press my hip toward the floor a little bit. I'm really going that way with this left hip. And the strap provides a little bit of resistance. I can push into it, work with it, pull on it. Don't forget to breathe. Stay for about 30 more seconds. Take a really big breath. And we're going to come on back to the center. Oh. And then, oh. We'll give ourselves a little rinse out here. Oh. Little back massage or some windshield wipers. And then this is the best part. You ready? We're gonna stretch out. Oh. And we're gonna see if we're a little bit more even on both sides. I love this feeling. Legs are all relaxed. It's good, y'all. All right, gather yourself together. So we're gonna bring ourselves to a seated position to start with the next phase of what we're doing together here. So roll and sit up. And we'll come to a seated position. Now, I'm gonna start with my legs out in a V, like so. Let's see, this guy can come up here, because I'm gonna need a blanket. So, oop, that's gonna be too small. Now, the way I use the blanket is I put it underneath my knees like that, so that there's a little bit of a bend in my knee, and this keeps me from hyperextending, which causes some pain for my knees. I can easily push my knees too close to the ground, so this prevents that for me. And then it also, if your knees are a little bit bent, it takes a little bit of the pressure off your hamstrings, so you might be able to bring your pelvis up a little taller. So if you're not sure, give that a whirl at your house and see if you like it, and then you can use that as we go through these next couple of poses. So we're gonna start going straight down the center here. And when I say going, I mean whatever happens, happens. But that didn't work. We're gonna either stay sitting straight up, because that might be as far as we're gonna get this morning, or we might be able to tilt forward some amount, okay? Now, when your face and chest touch the floor, you should definitely stop there. And if you're like me, that's not gonna happen, so you just stop when you land, right? So some people will get to their elbows, some of us might be able to put our hands on the floor. And so we're just gonna pause here for about 30 more seconds, just feeling this kind of even stretch. Both legs are being stretched the same. Let's see what it's doing to your back. So we're gonna come up and we're gonna take one leg. Now, you can bend the opposite leg if you want to, but if you can leave them both straight, do that. So we're gonna fold over one leg. So now I've created an asymmetrical situation here. So I feel this leg differently than I do this leg. And you just notice what it is that you're doing. And if anything feels dangerous or inappropriate, you can make adjustments. Do this for about 2 more breaths, and then we're going to switch it up a little bit. So now we're going to rotate a little bit so that I've taken my left arm from the outside to the inside of my right leg, and it's possible that I won't be able to get my elbow to my thigh, so you could grab your ankle or shin bone, okay? And then we're going to rotate this right shoulder up towards the ceiling and see if the right arm can drop up and over the ear. If that's not gonna work, you can nestle the arm behind you or reach out like that, because that's also good. They're just different, right on? So you can decide which one of those you like better. And don't forget now to start breathing deeply. So sometimes when we stretch in ways like this, the body will almost shallow up the breathing automatically, so you're gonna intentionally breathe deeper. Stay for 2 more big breaths. Now, big inhale, use your arm, come all the way up. And then we're just gonna pause for a moment because again, things are a little bit asymmetrical. I'm gonna do these little baby cat-cow shapes with my ribs and my spine. Side to side movement going. So I like these little teeny tiny movements, not very big, really subtle, while my spine settles. Okay, so one more time we're gonna go straight down the center. We're not gonna stay here very long, but just to see if there's a difference. It's kind of interesting to see. Like this side for me does not have as much sensation as this side. There's a slight asymmetry here. And again, it's just, we're using this as a awareness building practice, right? So we're doing the poses because that's fun, but we're also using the practice. Take a big inhale, come on up. We're using the practice to learn about the way the body works, to practice honing in and paying attention. So I don't know about you, but I'm easily distracted. So we're folded over this right leg now. Breathing. On this, we're going to stay for a little bit. So we're gonna take a big breath. And again, we're just gonna switch this to a side bend, okay? So we're gonna bring the arm around, maybe your hand's on your shin, maybe this left arm's coming up over your ear, maybe not. I'm gonna kind of push into my foot here just a little bit, get a tiny bit more rotation up, because we're going to take 2 more big breaths here. One more. And then I'm going to use this arm to try to escape. Big inhale, come up. Okay, so now we're going to lean back, we're going to bring the legs closer together. We're going to give ourselves a little bit of movement. Okay, you can bend your knees. Now once the spine kind of comes back to what feels like neutral, it's not leaning that direction anymore. And this takes about 30 seconds for me, so we're just about there. I notice kind of, yep, things shift somewhere in that 20 to 30 second range. Now I'm getting my hips a little bit further back, so as I'm folding forward, taking one off the floor at a time, and this just allows me to sort of rotate my pelvis more easily all the way back so that I can then fold over my legs. And I've got my legs pretty loose. If you want, you can pull your feet in tighter toward you. So that's a preference. Now, I'm going to turn this into a turtle in a second, but right now, I'm letting my spine get kind of long. So my breastbone's going up and away from my feet. So we take a nice big breath. Now, I'm going to let this get really round. So like a turtle shell, and if you wanted to, you could slide your arms up underneath your legs. I'm not going to bother with that. But it is an interesting position to put the shoulders in. And I'm going to hold this for a few more breaths. And this is all about my low back. Now, if yours doesn't love this, then don't do this part. I love the way the breath feels right in there when I'm rounding my back. All right, so we're gonna do one more big breath. And then we're gonna come out of here, and this is the end of our forward bends, but just notice how they impact you or make you feel. There's some ideas out there in the world that forward bends help calm and stabilize the mind, and so that if you are prone to anxiety or you have some anxiety issues, that they are helpful. I'm not positive about that, although I do find them very soothing myself. But I like to try things myself and see if I agree. So I'll suggest that to you as well. Try it. Notice what your body does and how your mind feels and reacts to yoga poses like that. If you hold a forward bend, does it give you this kind of sense? Now, for the next little segment of our practice, we're going to wind up on our feet. But before we get there, let's do some cat shapes with the in a kneeling position. So we're going to come to this kneeling space. You know, of all the crap on my mat. And then we're going to move ourselves through these two shapes. Sometimes when I get to one, it also feels nice to do a little hip movement. And so can you feel how that feels so different from this shape now? Having done that forward bending sequence, it definitely feels a little different. But it gets more comfy as we go. Now, if downward dog is in your wheelhouse of poses you can do, then cool, we're going to do some downward dog. If downward dog is not a pose that you can do, maybe you can't put your head below your hips, that sort of jazz, then what you're going to do instead is just stay with these movements here. If downward dog is okay for you, then tuck your toes and send yourself up. And now my hands are about shoulder distance apart, and I like them right there. Some people like a wider hand, so you can feel that out with your shoulders. I like to let my shoulder blades get as high up my back as possible, and then give it just a little kind of squeeze through my upper back, like I'm trying to draw my shoulder blades a little more deeply into and onto my back. Okay, so then we're going to walk either the feet up or the hands back until you're standing on your feet. And for those of you that stayed with the all fours position, this is your chance to kind of get yourself to your feet. So kind of tuck your toes under, walk your hands all the way back. Now, we're coming up to this point that feels like a half or a flat back. And then we're going to fold over if you can. If you can't, again, have your head below your hips. Just come to this half back position, flat back, and stay right there. All right. So from the little flattened out back, we're going to come all the way up to standing. Now, we're basically going to repeat what we just did, but in a standing position. So we're going to take ourselves into a wide angle, and we're just going to explore, like, if I do these same shapes with gravity in a different way, does it change the way the pose works for me? And I am curious, so let's find out. So again, if you need to keep your head level with your hips, you can do that. And my recommendation would be, if you've got them handy, grab a couple yoga blocks so that you can put your hands on something. You don't have to, you can put your hands on your shins, okay? But the blocks are helpful. So we're gonna come to a wide angle forward bend. So that's the first part of this. So I might stay with the head close to the hips, or I might wanna bring myself down, maybe even rest my elbows on blocks or on the floor. And then with the legs here now supporting my body weight, how does that change my response, or my sensation, or my, just in general. For some people, seated forward bends are quite challenging, but standing forward bends are really nice. So just notice your response to it. We're going to take one more breath with this middle position. And then we're going to just let ourselves lean over. So if I'm up on my blocks, I'm going to walk those over and just turn those toes that way. Right? And if I'm not using the blocks, I have the choice of turning the toes or leaving them in, but I'm going to let myself lean over this one leg. Okay? Now for me, this is a really different pose, right? I feel it more in my glutes and less in my hamstrings. So for you, what is it like? We're gonna take 2 more breaths here. And then we're gonna bend the knees slightly, come back to the center. We can rotate that leg in. And again, just noticing in the middle here, you can lift up onto the blocks if you want to. Is there a difference between those 2 sides? And then you can either turn the foot or leave it where it was, and we'll wander over to this side. And is this side different than the other side was? And again, just feeling, where does this land you? And how does it feel? And is it the same as when we were on the ground sitting? For me, it's a very different experience. Similar, but the places where I feel the intensity are very different. So we're going to take 2 more big breaths here. Bend the knee a bit, we'll come back around to the center. And one more time, if it feels okay, let yourself fold down the middle and just see if you experience the difference or any difference from the first time to the in-between times and this one. All right, so we're gonna heel toe the legs in a little, get ourselves to a flat back position, and then we're going to come all the way up to standing. Give everything a little jiggle. Shake out your arms. Give the legs a good shake. All right. I don't know why shaking is so good, but it really is. So I'm going to move my blocks out of the way here. And we're going to do a little bit of a side bend. So we're going to do this with a leg position. So I'm going to take my right leg and step it behind my left leg like that, okay? And the right side is the one that I'm going to stretch. So I could put my left hand right here on my hip, or I could hold onto my right wrist if I'm not feeling too wobbly. Now bend your knees if you need a little more release there. I'm going to try to hold this pose for about 3 more breaths. So then we're going to come out of here and try to turn this into a tree. So I'm going to take my right foot up and see if I can find the balance there. Now you can bring your right foot all the way up onto your thigh if you like. I find it a really comfortable position just to have my foot down on my calf muscle, just below the knee. Okay, so we're going to take 2 more breaths. If we can. We might fall, that's all right. And then we'll come back to centered. Give everything a little shake. And then just pause for a second in mountain pose. And again, I have my own ideas about mountain pose. One of the things that I see out in the world is this kind of rotation of the arms back. And this is interesting choice to me. The problem I have with it is I have a lot of tension already that I carry in the muscles right here next to my neck, my trapezius muscles, and doing that jacks them up even further in the area where they're already tight. So I don't do it for that reason. I let my arms hang and I do the work from my core to create the lift and the length without locking my knees out. So it's just something to notice, right? Because you can do it either way. So we're going to take this, and I notice a difference in my sides, left to right, which isn't the main thing that we're doing here. So we're going to take this left leg, bring it behind, and again, find a sturdy place. You can have the knees a little bent. Again, your right hand can be in your right waist, or you can hold onto that arm and stretch yourself over. And again, we're gonna stay for a little bit, about 30 seconds worth of breathing here. And it's a little bit of a balance challenge, so that's fun too. So I'm gonna take a nice big breath. And then we're gonna come out of that side stretch and see if we can turn that into a tree with that left foot. Nestling up on the leg somewhere. The standing balance work is not something that we always do, but it's always good for us to do. I try to do it like when I'm waiting for water to boil or something in the kitchen. I'll do some little standing balance work or a little down dog against the kitchen counter. It's a good time when you're waiting for things to happen. Okay, we're gonna take one more big breath, and then we're gonna come back to that mountain pose after a jiggle. And again, you choose how you want your arms to be, but feel. Without locking your knees out or creating too much tension in your body, can you find a place that feels stable and notice? So we're going to transition back down onto the floor. I'm going to do that through a downward dog, and then I'm going to come into a child's pose, and then we're going to do a little bit of back bend work before we do Shavasana, okay? You can get there however you get there. So I'm going to turn sideways, give myself a stretch, fold forward, and then I'm going to walk my hands out, and I'm probably going to have to walk my feet back a little too to find my downward dog pose. And again, this is not necessarily a gentle pose, so it may not be right for you. You can come to that all fours position. And I'm going to transition myself, leaving some room in front of me into my child's pose. Now this pose, I find very much that sort of quality of calming and stabilizing my mind. Now, not everybody loves child's pose, but I find it very stabilizing, so I like it a lot. If it's not your jam, that's okay. You might find that all it is putting the forehead on the floor, so I'm gonna come forward and rest my forehead on the floor here, and windshield wiper my legs a little bit. And then finding a place where I can stretch my legs out, I'm going to come into Cobra. So reach through the legs, and we're going to start with just a little baby Cobra. Just a little lift and come down. Reach through the legs, little baby Cobra. Maybe you get a little bit higher off the floor. Don't push with your arms, lift with your back muscles, okay? My hands are here for support, but I'm using the back and my legs and my glutes to get myself up off the floor. Reach, press the legs down, a little higher if it's available. I'm going to bring my hands back a little bit more because I'm ready for a little higher pose. And that lets me open my shoulders as I lift a little higher. Good, we got one more to go. And then wherever you can get yourself, that's where you're going to support yourself with the Sphinx, okay? I'm going to rotate back this way. I think it'll be easier to see. Okay, so with the Sphinx, I am placing my elbow a little bit, here's my shoulder, and my elbow's a little bit forward of that, and then slightly less than shoulder distance apart. And that gives me a nice Sphinx. Now I've got my knees bent, which makes my hip want to buckle. So what I'm doing essentially is allowing myself to press a little firmly into my hips so that I'm lengthening my hip flexors in a passive way by letting gravity pull them to the floor while I'm simultaneously producing a challenge to that by trying to bring my feet towards my buttocks, okay? Now, if you have tight hip flexors, it'll buckle you right here. So you'll get a lift like that at that area. So that's what we're trying to flatten out. Is we're just trying to let that muscle stretch And there's a bunch of different muscles there that are responsible for helping our hips flex. The main hip flexor, you know, not everyone agrees on this, but the iliopsoas is the main hip flexor. We'll go with that for now. But one of the quads helps to flex our hips. The tensor fasciae lata muscle acts to help flex our hips, and there's some other ones as well. So for now, what we're doing is just stretching that whole area. How's that? We'll get them all at once. So we're going to take 2 more breaths of kind of actively trying to press the front of the hip down while you're also simultaneously either bringing the feet towards your buttocks or lifting your knees off the floor. All right, so then we're going to relax this whole situation, give it a little rinse. No, I want to go back to child's pose, but for you, it might be better to just flip over onto your back. I'm going to join you there in a moment because, again, I find this pose really nice, but you might just want to lay on your back. And then once you flipped over onto your back, we're going to do a little happy baby pose. So it kind of brings us a little full circle. Now, before we get really involved in this happy baby pose, go ahead and grab any yoga props that you're gonna want for your final relaxation. So if you want something to put underneath your head, grab that. I'm gonna get a pillow for my legs. And I'm gonna let myself use this tiny blanket under my head. So I'm just gonna set that off to the side for now, but it's handy, right? Okay, so laying down on the back. We did this at the beginning as a half happy baby, right? We reached up and grabbed just one foot, and then we worked on those hip flexors on the other side. Well, friends, we're gonna see if we can get both feet. It might be the ankles, and it might be better for you to keep your feet a little closer in, so it's almost like upside down child's pose, right? But if you can, and it feels okay to let the feet open up wide, then let them open up a little wider. And then sometimes this lifts my sacrum up off the floor. So what I'm doing with Happy Baby is using the resistance to get my sacrum down. So I'm pressing the feet up into my hands, pulling a little bit, and then using that energy to get my sacrum down to the ground without using too much of my head to try to press down. To keep it that part light. More core. Sometimes when the core muscles are not as strong, they'll try to recruit your neck muscles to do part of the job. Try to keep those guys out of the workforce. Make your core do its own job. I like to refer to the core as the great delegator. Like, they'll let all the other muscles in the body do their job for them. You might have a coworker like that. Take one more big breath. And then we're going to let this whole thing go. And nice and easy now, bring the feet to the floor. And then give yourself these little windshield wipers if that feels okay to you. I like a nice wide one for this. So my knee can go all the way into that internal rotation. Oh, feels good. All right, friends, it's time for Shavasana. So we're going to put this pillow underneath the legs. Well, you don't have to, but it's nice. If you have some little fur pillows, those work really great too. And then, depending on how your head and neck feel, you might want a little blanket or a little pillow under your head. And I just have to make sure that it is not too wrinkly. It has to be nice and smooth. And then what I do with the blanket or the edge of my yoga mat, if I don't have a blanket, is I cup it right up against the ridgy bones at the back of the skull and then put my head down. So that those little ridges on the back of my skull have that tiny feeling of being supported. Now that for me calms and steadies the mind. And there's some really powerful nerves that run through that part of my neck. So quite likely it really is a kind of stimulation to that nervous system, that sort of limbic brainstem nervous system. It doesn't really know the difference between I'm about to be eaten by a tiger and I feel anxiety because I don't know what's happening in the world. Right on. relax the muscles in your face and across your scalp. Especially concentrate like these muscles right here around the temple and around the top of the ear. Let that area get really soft. And try to soften right between your eyebrows. And then also let the quality of the mouth get really soft. So the lips get kind of fluffy. Let the palms relax and the soles of the feet. Usually for me, most everything else will then follow. a moment again and pay attention to your breath. You can open your eyes, you can leave them closed a little bit longer and give yourself a little wiggle of your fingers and toes. Stretch them out, wiggle them. Give your wrists and ankles a little movement. Stretch out your body. Oh, and then curl up in a ball and give your favorite yogi a hug and a back massage for the road. Or the couch, or wherever you're headed. Out into the backyard to do some work, whatever it might be. Oh. Well, yogis, oh, it's been delightful to spend the last hour with you. Doing some yoga in my house and you doing yoga at your house. Let's take a nice big breath together. Let go with a big sigh. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend. Namaste.